I'd like to tell you about the strangest secret in the world. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. What's wrong with men today? Men simply don't think. It's about this that I want to talk with you. Men simply don't think. We live today in a golden age. This is an era that man has looked forward to, dreamed of, and worked toward for thousands of years. But since it's here, we pretty well take it for granted. We in America are particularly fortunate to live in the richest land that ever existed on the face of the earth, a land of abundant opportunity for everyone. But do you know what happens? Well, let's take 100 men who start even at the age of 25. Do you have any idea what will happen to those men by the time they're 65? These 100 men who all start even at the age of 25 believe they're going to be successful. If you ask any one of these men if he wanted to be a success, he'd tell you he did. And you'd notice that he was eager toward life, that there was a certain sparkle to his eye, an erectness to his carriage, and life seemed like a pretty interesting adventure to him. But by the time they're 65, 1 will be rich. 4 will be financially independent. 5 will still be working. 54 will be broke. Men simply don't think. Men simply don't think. Now think a moment. Out of the 100, only 5 make the grade. Now why do so many fail? Men simply don't think. What has happened to the sparkle that was there when they were 25? What's become of the dreams, the hopes, the plans? And why is there such a large disparity between what these men intended to do and what they actually accomplished? When we say about 5% achieve success, we have to define success. And here's the best definition I've ever been able to find. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. If a man is working toward a predetermined goal and knows where he's going, that man is a success. If he's not doing that, he's a failure. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice. It is conformity, conformity, conformity. Men simply don't think. And there you have the trouble today. It's conformity, people acting like everyone else without knowing why, without knowing where they're going. Men simply don't think. Now think of it. In America right now, men simply don't think. And most of them are broke. They're dependent on someone else for life's necessities. Now, we learn to read by the time we're 7. We learn to make a living by the time we're 25. Usually by that time, we're not only making a living, we're supporting a family. And yet, by the time we're 65, we haven't learned how to become financially independent in the richest land that has ever been known. Why? We conform. Men simply don't think. And the trouble is that we're acting like the wrong percentage group, the 95 who don't succeed. Now, why do these people conform? Well, they really don't know. These people believe that their lives are shaped by circumstances, by things that happen to them, by exterior forces. They're outer-directed people. A survey was made one time that covered a lot of men, working men, and these men were asked, why do you work? Why do you get up in the morning? 19 out of 20 had no idea. If you ask them, they'll say, well, everyone goes to work in the morning, and that's the reason they do it, because everyone else is doing it. Men simply don't think. Now let's get back to our definition of success. Who succeeds? The only person who succeeds is the person who is progressively realizing a worthy ideal. Is the person who says, I'm going to become this, and then begins to work toward that goal. I'll tell you who the successful people are. A success is the school teacher who's teaching school because that's what he or she wants to do. The success is the woman who's a wife and mother because she wanted to become a wife and mother and is doing a good job of it. The success is the man who runs the corner gas station because that was his dream. That's what he wanted to do. The success is the successful salesman who wants to become a top-notch salesman and grow and build with his organization. A success is anyone who is doing deliberately a predetermined job because that's what he decided to do deliberately. But only 1 out of 20 does that. That's why today there isn't really any competition unless we make it for ourselves. Instead of competing, all we have to do is create. Men simply don't think. All we have to do is create. You know, for 20 years, I looked for the key which would determine what would happen to a human being. Was there a key I wanted to know which would make the future a promise that we could foretell to a large extent? Was there a key that would guarantee a person's becoming successful if he only knew about it and knew how to use it? Well, there is such a key, and I found it. All we have to do is create. Have you ever wondered why so many men work so hard and honestly without ever achieving anything in particular, and others don't seem to work hard and yet seem to get everything? They seem to have the magic touch. You've heard them say that about someone. Everything he touches turns to gold. And have you ever noticed that a man who becomes successful tends to continue to become successful? And on the other hand, have you noticed how a man who's a failure tends to continue to fail? Well, it's because of goals. Some of us have goals, some don't. People with goals succeed because they know where they're going. It's that simple. All we have to do is create. Think of a ship leaving a harbor, and think of it with the complete voyage mapped out and planned. The captain and crew know exactly where it's going and how long it'll take. It has a definite goal. Now, 9,999 times out of 10,000, it will get to where it started out to get. Now, let's take another ship, just like the first, only let's not put a crew on it or a captain at the helm. Let's give it no aiming point, no goal, no destination. We just start the engines and let it go. I think you'll agree with me that if it gets out of the harbor at all, it'll either sink or wind up on some deserted beach, a derelict. It can't go anyplace because it has no destination and no guidance, and it's the same with a human being. Now let's get back to the strangest secret in the world, the story that I wanted to tell you today. Why do men with goals succeed in life and men without them fail? Well, let me tell you something which, if you really understand it, will alter your life immediately. If you understand completely what I'm going to tell you from this moment on, your life will never be the same again. You will suddenly find that good luck just seems to be attracted to you. The things you want just seem to fall in line, and from now on you won't have the problems, the worries, the gnawing lump of anxiety that perhaps you've experienced before. Doubt, fear, well, they'll be things of the past. Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. All we have to do is create. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about. All we have to do is create. Throughout all history, the great wise men and teachers, philosophers and prophets have disagreed with one another on many different things. It's only on this one point that they are in complete and unanimous agreement. A man's life is what his thoughts make of it. Everything comes if a man will only wait. I brought myself by long meditation to the conviction that a human being with a settled purpose must accomplish it, and that nothing can resist a will that will stake even existence for its fulfillment. A man is what he thinks about all day long. Human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. We need only in cold blood act as if the thing in question were real, and it will become infallibly real by growing into such a connection with our life that it will become real. It will become so knit with habit and emotion that our interest in it will be those which characterize belief. If you only care enough for a result, you will almost certainly attain it. If you wish to be rich, you will be rich. If you wish to be learned, you will be learned. If you wish to be good, you will be good. Only you must then really wish these things and wish them exclusively, and not wish at the same time 100 other incompatible things just as strongly. All we have to do is create. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. This is one of the greatest laws in the universe. Fervently do I wish I had discovered it as a very young man. It dawned upon me much later in life, and I found it to be one of the greatest, if not my greatest discovery outside of my relationship to God. The great law, briefly and simply stated, is that if you think in negative terms, you will get negative results. If you think in positive terms, you will achieve positive results. That is the simple fact, the basis of an astonishing law of prosperity and success. In 3 words, believe and succeed. All we have to do is create. Men simply don't think. All we have to do is create.
And good evening. Welcome to Civilization Cycle. I'm your co-host, Ransom Godwin. We're just waiting on the Big D to show up here. He's here. He's getting his ducks in a row and whatnot. So, I hope you liked my jam there about manifestation. Think in positive terms, you'll receive positive results.
And that is so true. That was such a great intro. If you were sitting here listening with us on that intro, I was just like blown away by thinking, that I have that book, Think and Grow Rich, but I could really put it into practice because, the way the world is now, they've got you focused on so many different things that are non-necessary for you to focus on. We have these double novas in the sky right now, 2 micronovas from other stars far from here, light years away. But the galactic cosmic rays have entered our sphere here within our solar system. Now, if you go back to ancient Chinese lore and the Magi and the star watchers of the Arab kingdoms at the time, they talked about when these extra galactic cosmic rays, beyond what our sun gives us, our own star, that humanity goes insane. There's an insane period. And the Chinese had termed these things called ke xing, like ke, like visitor, and star, xing, 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 ke xing. And every time the ke xing, as a visitor came by, it caused chaos, caused disruption for the emperor. The dynasty was affected. And we find this throughout history when these either single nova events come and they cause these extra galactic cosmic ray bombardment, especially when we're heading off solar maximum into solar minimum. Now we've reached at the maximum and it's starting to drop off precipitously, like vertical off the cliff. These extra galactic cosmic rays cause more cloud cover. And Heinrich Svensmark, who did the cloud mystery, was the one who really discovered this. And he was demonized and they took away his funding, took away his laboratory at the university, and he had to get self-funding. And then when he proved everything, they're like, oh, you're correct. Sorry. Come on back to our university. Wait, you're the one who kicked me out. So Heinrich is off on his own now and wrote The Chilling Stars, Cloud Mystery, all about cosmic rays and different kind of effects that these particles have on us. So we're having these record floods. And I don't know if you saw the thing in India where they had this huge cloud burst. Yeah. And I mean, this was like one of the most incredible, amazing things I've seen. Me and Ransom, we look at disaster stuff all the time. And what happened in India, they had a cloud burst where it rained like 3 hours straight, just like it did in Texas or whatnot. But all the water flowed down at the same time and it came into this gorge. This thing was like 150 feet deep. It came down with such ferocity that it spilled over and then completely wiped a village away of like 20 or 30 buildings. 150 feet off the riverbed. These are the types of things that we're starting to get into. So you can see why governments are responding. And that's Nigeria right there, by the way. Anybody looking at us on the feed here, I'd sent Ransom that link over there. These are the floods in Nigeria in the desert. Okay, so you got Nigeria and it borders, and then if you go into northern Nigeria and you get up in Niger and all these, it gets really dry up there. It starts to get into what they call the Sahel. You were looking at flooding in the desert where there are 5 to 6 feet of water deep in the desert areas of these countries in the Sahel area of Africa. I am absolutely unequivocally saying we have reached over that point of something tremendous is here now to visit us. Now you're going to see the obfuscation. Everybody's talking about, this is a comet coming by. The Chinese were very much against comets. Like they call them hui xing, like the tail brushing on hui xing. Again, it's about a star. It's a part of a star that brushes the planet. And they were bad omens. Ooh, bad omens always come when comets come by. But have you noticed the news always pointing to this one here? Oh, it's going to be a visitor AI, it's a visitor alien, it's a visitor something, it's extraterrestrial. They're going to need to deflect you from seeing all this. So Ransom, I appreciate you putting that up there. And there's so much going on. I think we've really reached the point of, because last year when I was talking about the 4 gas giants lining up, that was the beginning of the cycle. Now, the end of the cycle occurs somewhere in around 2032. So we start to see the second coordinating of the gas giants on the opposite side to complete that. Well, I would call it the Kabbalah in the sky, for the best term that you can use. So 2024 was the beginning of that cycle. And, there's something tremendous that has upticked since that time. Now, luckily for us, 2032 seems to be the end of it, where it plugs back into itself, but the opposite end of the solar system. So we'll see how it goes on that. But we have another, 7 years to ride through this, and that's pretty quintessential when you're talking about 7 years of feast, 7 years of famine.
Right.
I didn't see this one. What's up with the interstellar visitor? This is what I'm talking about. They're trying to point to this. Everybody's got some sort of aliens are coming, dude. They're gonna throw something at us. I feel it. You know it.
If not, this will be the beta. But ironically, that's what I've been listening to people from all over the internet. I've been listening to people in Japan. I've been listening to a lot of, talk show hosts here, podcasters, from Dr. Malone to, the Dark Journalist actually did a good interview on the Alex Jones show talking about this topic. And there seems to be this artificial push to get people ready for the idea that all of a sudden we're going to have to deal with an endless defense budget. And every nation in the world will have to be, part of that. And not only that, Werner von Braun kind of famously, well, at least he was said to famously say that there would be waves of propaganda to control the human mindset using fear, the Cold War, then there would be terrorists. We lived through the whole war on terror, which, by the way, is not over, and the massive apparatus that was built for that. Not to mention the massive apparatus that was built, shortly after 1947. And the word is in the groups that they're about to come out and tell everybody that, yes, Roswell was real. They really did reverse engineer lots of different technologies. But not only that, that there's this threat that you can't really see, hear, or touch in the way that we normally do. But it's easy to produce propaganda about a threat that you could never prove is real or not real. Now, this one, the main guy from Harvard, Loeb, I think his name is, this isn't the first time that he's talked about these interstellar objects possibly being alien artifacts or intelligently designed craft, or at the very least, some object set in motion by intention from an intelligence somewhere else. What are they going to say they are? Interdimensional beings? Who knows? But right about the same time, I don't think it'll be this one. I think they want to judge the public's reaction on the rumors right now going on about this. And then the date I heard was 2027, and there's a lot of people out there in the UFO community circles that have been saying that there's an object going to come and they're going to tell you that it's alien, but it's not. But don't worry, listen to us. We'll let you know, despite us all, basically working for the government. All of them have ties to the deep state intelligence organizations and stuff. So like from Tom DeLonge, all of it. It seems to be kind of a united front building up this story that can never be really proven by the peasant on the street down at the bottom. But I think that they might be able to convince people when they start throwing in these other ideas. And I thought you might find this interesting because I know this is your specialty, David, is problems in the world right now when it's regarding to food. Now, I have a couple articles up and I have my own theory, and some of them kind of go back to discussions we've had several years ago where we were talking about, hypothetically, if there got to a point where wild foods were tainted from everything under the sun, you can't get the turkeys or whatever because they got bird flu. You can't eat the deer because they got the zombie virus. You can't eat pork because somehow it keeps getting poisoned with stuff that turns the meat blue, and we'll get into that later. And then you have, the screw worms, the this, that, and the other viruses. But according to this, because this goes back kind of to that article that you had up a minute ago about all the flooding in the places, and I've been watching on the internet, and it's hard to tell if some stuff is legitly right now or they're recycling images sometimes. But I've been seeing massive flooding in China, Myanmar. How do you say that? Anyway,
Myanmar.
all over the place, including the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa and the whole northern Africa, where everybody's moving away from right now and has been for the last 20 years.
No,
But anyway,
I might respond just for a second to that. The amount of rain is directly related to cloud building particles. Plus, we need to add in the Hunga Tonga eruption. So, everybody's kind of brushing that away, like, oh, all the atmosphere come out of the moisture come out of the atmosphere. No, it didn't. There's still an enormous amount up there. You have to realize that single eruption put 14% more water vapor in our atmosphere in a single event in a day.
right.
So it's slowly coming out. Gravity's taking it out. But you have to realize that all these different particles that are whizzing in here because of now double novas and a weakening magnetic field and our own sun we have a triple input of galactic cosmic rays. And they did a lot of studies back in the day. This is like 2014-15 when I was doing the Adapt 2030 channel. There was a 7 times increase in cloud building versus what their input models were. When they actually did it, when Heinrich Svensmark started using his cloud chamber experiments, showing that analytical and computer data and computer modeling and all these things that they had done with cosmic rays was 7 times less than it really is in the real world on how much a cosmic ray can bombard into something, spin off, cascade down through the atmosphere, and create all these offshoot particles that then become the cloud droplets, or muons is the first base form of it. And then that has its own charge that binds things to it. And then those particles become microparticles of dust, and then something else binds to it, and then become cloud droplets. 7x increase in that. So if you're taking a look at like, okay, well, we're going to come into a high cosmic ray bombardment period. And then it really made sense for me because a guy I talked to, he went by the pen name of Morpheus, and I won't mention his real name. But he was telling me that, what we see, the cloud, the stratospheric aerosol geoengineering was only one layer of everything, that the real reason for that program was cosmic radiation management to try to nullify, because those particles of metal that are thrown up in the sky, anytime a cosmic ray were to hit one of those, it loses its charge. There's no more cloud building. It stops dead, literally. So you have micro aerosolized, or, whatever you like to term that, micro fine particles, nanoparticles, nanoparticulates. There's a whole bevy of names for that. But the smaller the particle, the better, because cosmic rays are incredibly tiny. There's photons or alpha particles. There's a whole bunch of different types of them that come whizzing through. Now, if they were to collide with any of those metals up there at all, they lose their charge and there's no more cloud building. So he was trying to explain that as we come into a cosmic ray dense period, that this is preventing the biblical floods from the skies. The rivers from the sky are being prevented by this cosmic radiation management, sold to the public as, well, what you see up there with the persistent contrails. Because to sell it to the public, that if we stop this program, we are going to have runaway floods that are going to be 7 times bigger than the biggest floods you've seen right now, like Texas. That would be 7 times bigger without these programs ongoing. So to try to sell that to the populace and say, hey, if we stop this, we stop the geoengineering. It's not really geoengineering, it's cosmic radiation management. But if we stop it, we really are going to have biblical floods. So, this upset of society and trying to do the better good of things. He was trying to explain it to me in this fashion. I'm like, man, you need to warn the people. I understand what you're trying to do is prevent panic. I get it. I totally get it. But you need to warn the people. And this is where we sit right now. It's overwhelming what they're putting up there for their management programs. So we shouldn't have these, unbelievable floods that rain out in the Himalayan mountains and actually wipe away villages 150 feet off the riverbed. We are at the unthinkable level, which is going to become the normal level. It is overwhelming our ability now to put particulate metals in the skies to nullify the charge of the cosmic rays coming in. Now what is the thing? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but I'm just trying to respond to that and say that the reason they're saying, oh, there's floods that are reducing food. No, it's an increase in cosmic rays that are no longer controllable because we've gone over. And now we got 2 naked eye novas coming in. Like, the overwhelm of cosmic rays coming in is just really, the sink has been tipped over. And all these excuses why there's floods and there's food shortages and this, that, and the other, we need to look back to cycles in nature. And that's my long-winded response, as always.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's a totally different answer than, say, you went and asked the AI why it is that we're having food problems. But
Their answer?
well, of course, it's climate change because of humans, of course.
Come on.
Droughts, floods, and other extreme events exacerbated by climate change.
Sheesh.
It,
Are they still going with that garbage?
and
I'm just surprised.
you notice like Kerrville, for example, that just got flooded out. Roswell was on the news. I mean, Ruidoso, that's right next to me.
Yeah.
They leave out crucial factoids like the river in Texas that rose up. They did have a massive rain event. That's, you know, that's not an argument. However, what does the land look like compared to the way it did the last time it flooded and it wasn't that bad? And I'll tell you, it's dramatically different. Instead of lots of trees and undergrowth and forest, it's been mowed down to farm. So everything's flat and there's fields. And then on top of that, you have an increase in human settlement all along the river, which what do? For some reason, they all think they're Scottish and they have to have this yard with this certain grass that, guess what? It doesn't absorb the water or stop it. So all these places are different than they were a while back. You can call that man-made right there, but that's not a climate change. That's something that happened after the rain and how, you know, it responded. But I thought that you would find this funny is what they're talking about is conflicts being one of the major driver too. And this is what we talk about. Why are the people moving these specific areas, right? They're migrating out. There's conflicts happening, but yet there's investment going into places like the Sudan, all the way over to Gaza. So that whole area has, you know, Libya, all of that stuff. They're investing into the future. And, you know, you kind of
I can explain the Sudan for you, though. Like, before you go a little deep, now the African electrical corridor is what they call that. It is live and active now. So the Great Renaissance Dam was the beginning of it in Ethiopia. And they were, you know, that was the largest hydroelectric dam in Africa and one of the driest places. It's on the horn there, but it was definitely dry. It was like a white elephant project. Now, since that time, they've been in construction of 6 other dams stepping down off of that plateau. And the electric lines are now complete and they're running all the way to Tanzania. So what they're doing is they're putting spur electrical production onto like fabrication facilities, this sort of thing coming down. So these nations here, I can guarantee absolutely South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Tanzania are going to be the wealthiest countries in Africa. Now, what they're fighting for, before they were fighting for oil resources, but now what are they fighting for? They're fighting for roots and that electrical connectivity corridor is what they're fighting for. So you start to look at this, the resource now is electricity. Electricity. It's not oil and gas anymore, it's electricity, because electricity is the beginning of the civilization as we saw it from the 1800s in America come up to the wealthiest nation. They're looking at the exact same thing, but they have way, 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 way more resources than we ever did in America. Africa is so much larger. You can put like 3 full lower 48 states in Africa. So you think about electrifying all of that with 3 times the resources we had or still have in America as the lower 48. Oh my gosh. And then if they're going to put AI data centers there too, as the pincer into that whole thing there. So that, look to Sudan, South Sudan. This is going to be a juncture point, because not only is the water coming back in those basins there filling back up in the African mega lakes where they'll have constant water, but they're also fighting for the electrical corridor, because whoever controls that electricity literally controls the development of civilization, not even society, civilization in that area from this point forward, which is the new like seed point for what I would consider humanity 2.0.
Absolutely. And they're talking about the whole area there of Northern Africa, the Sahel, East and West Africa. Yeah. And, you know, they're saying, look to this.
More east though.
Yeah. But the reasons that they give have kind of nothing to do with what's going on in the world. And I wanted to, you know, add this in there with the cosmic ray thing. Right.
Oh, that was a great article. I saw that one. Yeah. Please explain that one to me. I love it.
Yeah. So this is really deep, and we've kind of touched on this before. There's some insinuations made here about Neanderthal going extinct. We know they wore loose clothing, furs, and different stuff. So they wore clothes. But humans had better technology. They wore more tight fitting clothes. But on top of that, they were rubbing red ochre all over themselves, which tells me that if they didn't just get lucky because of some kind of religious belief, they actually knew the technology behind the red ochre. And not only did they know that, they knew they needed it specifically. I mean, and think about it. You can't see UV rays, but when you're saying that UV rays are, a doom thing and they're all pouring down, obviously, so are the cosmic rays and everything else that's bombarding from the universe down on you. But it gets into this whole thing about, they didn't know why they disappeared, but it seems like we just had the best technology on the block. And this is the world that we're talking about right now coming up. If the magnetic field indeed collapses, not only is there going to be problem getting, grains and other things to grow right and your gardens to grow right. And if you keep adding this idea of, all of the volcanoes that are becoming lively, then you're talking about reduced sun. And we all know that, you can go out on a really cloudy day and still get sunburnt because the UV burns right through that. So you're getting a reduction in all of the life-giving kinds of energy from the sun, but not the deadly kind. So it's a unique situation. And what would happen in those time periods right there when, the food is being limited because literally the conditions on the earth. But not only that, you have governments fighting, moving assets and stuff like that. It leaves the population in the dust. And we constantly talk about, like, what are you going to do? Unfortunately, this sounds like, maybe a pessimistic view of the earth here. But as far as it goes for the industrial nations, let me turn that off. The food's disappearing. The food that would be available to you if you, got out of the system and you didn't buy from the grocery store, it's now all tainted. And they keep up the propaganda about it all being tainted to the point where people are going to be scared to eat anything that doesn't come from them. But they have the answer to this, of course. They're going to grow the meat.
I'm
Then you don't
calling
have to worry
BS,
about
man. There's a huge
screwworms.
amount of non-toxic forageables everywhere as soon as you get off roads and sort of into the forest. Absolutely, fields and forests. There's so much food out there, it'll boggle your mind. Don't believe the propaganda. They're trying to convince you not to eat anything natural that comes from nature. And a guy who was trying to teach me how to wild forage told me, man, the micronutrients and these sort of things, photoactive compounds and things in these are way better than anything you get even from your own garden because they grew. Like we're out way out in the country. It's like the stuff you grow in the garden's good. It's like way better than organic stuff and anything you get in the store, right? But what grows in the forest and naturally around there blows anything in your garden away, even though you're just using compost and you're way out here in the countryside. So put that into perspective. Like you got agriculture stuff coming from California, totally covered in pesticides. Then you got to level up and pay a bunch more for organics. And our gardens out here are above that. But he's like, dude, that's nothing compared to what the real earth can give you. Like you're way leveling up when you're out wild foraging, way leveling up.
And I think that's absolutely the answer. Unfortunately, I think there's a concerted effort to reduce your avenues to get food. And I've been seeing this. They've been hammering us with this in the Southwest. This is why your meat's going to cost so much.
You're down there, aren't you, in the Screwworm Central?
Yeah. But really, it's just about the new trade organization and the way that it's coming out. It has nothing to do with this worm. However, this wild pigs found with blue meat in California spark alarm. And this seems like a
wait, those are wild hogs right there. What are you showing?
Right.
That's a wild hog.
But they're blue. The meat's blue. Why? Because they're eating things that are designed to kill other stuff like rodents and other stuff. But it's all out in the wild. So you know that these things are not eating that at people's farms or stuff like that. Someone is spreading it out there.
Rodenticides.
Yeah. But that's okay because we got this what is it? The
No, wait, that's a really interesting article there. So something's surviving the poisons now that can exist, and it takes it into its system, but it's not powerful enough to kill the animal, and it can deal
But
with
you
that
can eat it.
toxin, and then you go out and hunt that as a wild.
You will get sick.
But it said a blue tinged muscle. Like, I want to see a picture of the blue tinged muscle myself.
Right.
Like, just the word of a blue tinged muscle. Is this like a fake story?
It could be. That's kind of my point. They're making this idea that you have no other option to go one route. And I think it's not enough now to just, grow your own food and do this. There has to be a real network um, of backup food, because it's all tainted now through the grocery store. They're replacing food with fake food. And it seems like they're not giving up on it, even though everybody so far is kind of in mass rejected the idea. They're going forward with all of it because they know that you'll be okay, because they gave you GMO. People didn't like it, but they got used to it. Now everything's GMO. And we've been bringing this idea of them growing their own pharmaceuticals in the products. From your health products, it's got it in
Dangerous.
there. They got it in the food. So now we're being cornered into this area where it's really hard especially for the common man that doesn't even, think about these ideas. Just one day, there's no food. They can't get it. They're scared of getting it because of diseases or poisoning. And if we're toxified with plastic, so are the animals. So it seems like they're creating this situation for mass famine on purpose, not on an accident. And it would all come to a head with either war or some kind of event where they start reducing the food. But they're preemptively getting rid of your other avenues of food. And where was this?
But I was going to go hunting, so I'll tell you a thing here. Like, rabbits, you're not. So the old folk here, and then there's a lot of people that say the same thing. Don't hunt any rabbits with a month that does not have an R in it, because there's some sort of bacteria that lives in the gut of the rabbit in the summer months here.
Yeah.
So when you come into like September, that's the first month you can start to take rabbit. But it's better if you get in October, November, December. And we're not talking about April. We're talking about those colder months. So we've protected our gardens. Our neighbors protect their gardens. We left a ton of rabbit around here. So our whole plan is to go harvest a huge amount of rabbit. There must be 50, 60 rabbits around here. They're all cottontails. But when it comes up to that time, 22 with a nice scope on it, just go out and we're going to harvest rabbit all the time. It's just going to be like a rabbit fest here. And, they're a little lean, so you can put some other types of fats in there. A lot of times people use lard or some sort of rendered down fats that you get. But the whole point of that is leaving the game animals here because they haven't been as voracious. There's been so much rainfall that there's so much vegetation. It's almost impossible to keep everything down in the fields right now or even anywhere. Yeah, here it is. Rabbits can carry and be affected by various bacteria, some of which can cause illness, and the rabbits themselves potentially be transmitted to humans. True. Pasteureliosis, Pasteureliosis caused by Pasteurella multocinda is a common bacterial infection in rabbits, often except in the winter months when it's not prevalent. It's only prevalent in the summer months. So please understand that. See if I was to read that in a news headline, if I didn't know about rabbits, I'd be like, damn, I'm not eating ever as long as I live. Yeah. But that is only predominant in the summer and the heat months. When you get into the cooler months, then that no longer applies. That's why the old wives' tale or the old hunter's tale, whatever you like to call it, never take a rabbit out of an R season, out of an R month, ever. So the whole thing is we protect the gardens. There's so much wild vegetation right now. The rainfall is crazy. So we left the wild animals just like breed out and like get up to voracious. If there was no other vegetation around, those rabbits would have eaten us out of house and home by now. But there's so much wild vegetation around because there was so much rainfall this year that they're multiplying. There's plenty of food for them. They're not even coming up to the house really anymore. And they're going by 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s. So when it comes into like October, November, there's going to be a huge amount of meat available. And, you can get a whole thing of 122 shells for a few bucks, So for me, that's a great balance, because I like to hone my skills anyway. I like to shoot, like to get it, and I can combine those things and then get meat at the same time. But it's clean meat, because they're out here. They're not eating out on pesticide, laden fields. They're out here around my 25 acres. My neighbors over there, they got 5 acres. And the other guy over here got 12 acres. And another person over there got 6 acres. And next guy across got 58 acres over on the other side. So between here, there's like 100 acres. They all just stay around here. Nobody sprays, nobody does anything, right? So it's like really clean meat. And that's another important thing. You need to know where your meat comes from. Where's your source of meat? Like, I don't know, when I go into a grocery store, where'd that thing come from? But anyway, don't let those headlines or those types of things scare you away. Understand, like, the seasonality of different, like you talk, bacterias. It's a seasonal thing. And you can still, once you get into the correct season, harvest those animals. And they should be harvested, because next year, if we don't have enough rain, there are going to be way too many, and they will eat us out of house and home. So again, it's that carrying capacity and balance. Like, those animals, if you believe in the Bible, those are for our nutrition and for our sustenance. So if you feel like, oh, I don't want to kill a rabbit, that, I harvest my own geese. I take a machete and I'll take the head off in a single slice, and they never feel a thing. Those animals are for us, for our protein, for our benefit. And you have to look at that, and you have to get over that. If you can't take an animal for your own sustenance, it took me a while to do that. I'm not gonna be like, oh, anybody can do it. It took me a while to get to that point, to take it, and then talking to people, and then take another one, and being, this is the way nature is. This is the way the balance is. This is the way we've always done it. But in those first couple times that you do that, it's going to be a little difficult, because a lot of times you're bonded with the animals. You're like, oh, it's my first turkey. Oh, it's my first duck. Oh, it's my first thing. It's kind of like a pet, It's like those, like, move them off to the side. You can't harvest those. But as you go along in your journey of raising birds or animals or meat or whatever it is, you start to realize, don't name it. Don't be like super friendly to create a pet out of it, because it will be harvested in the future. You need to break that bond. And once you get to that point of raising your animals from egg or from infant all the way up into the meat source, if you can complete that loop, you are at the apex of being prepared, because most people can't do it. Really can't. So have I lost part of my soul and my feeling because I've taken animals before that I've known or I've been around, and then, raised them up and taken? And has a shard of my soul died because I've taken life? I don't know. It's a philosophical debate. It's a spiritual debate at that point. A Buddhist would say, I could never do that. But a lot of Buddhists are vegetarian. If you want to live in the real world with fats in your brain so you can survive through these things, you're going to have to start to think in a different way.
Right. So, well, that's kind of my point, is there is some real issues going on out there tainting our food. But at the same time, there's a massive amount of propaganda to convince human beings that they can't live off the land, that there's too many problems, that they'll get sick, or they might need an injection to prevent something, or
pine needle
which
tea,
is
my
funny
friends,
too.
pine needle tea.
So, like, if you live in New Mexico, Colorado, or Nevada, Utah, California, Oregon, Washington, Montana, the Dakotas, then the meat out there has had its shots. I'll just put it that way, because they're going out there by helicopter, kettling them, and making sure that nature is protected by pharma as well. But this is just sick. You could just, if you want to believe the government here, they're just doing it to save, wild populations from these wild pigs. So they go out there and they feed them these tainted foods. But according to them, don't worry about it. It won't enter the food chain. But it seems to be more about scaring people on being able to eat backup resources of stuff. So there's two worlds emerging right now, right? It's, Trump and all them are talking about this golden age, but there kind of is a golden age of technology right now. So in the past 3 months, I've seen at least 20 different articles about different things, but really they're the same topic. And the topic is the ability of pharma to extend our life indefinitely. And they found various different ways to do this now. I've been, really paying attention to this. So here's supposedly a discovery right here where scientists discover molecular switch to turn cancer cells into normal cells, right? So that's great. Aging
What about the
spreads through the
telomeres,
body.
though? What about the telomeres?
Aha, I was going to get to that. I was going to get to that.
I saw your
So,
computer earlier. I was seeing what you were looking at.
right. So they have figured out that aging spreads throughout your body kind of like a condition. So basically, if you have a group of cells that decide they're old, they transmit some kind of protein that tells the rest of the body that it's growing old and it's done with its turn. But they found that these proteins that enter the cell can be blocked. In other words, if you give the protein to people, they'll age faster. Same way that the mice in the labs did. They age faster, but if they block that protein, they get healthier, they start healing up. So there's many different ways. And then, I brought up the mushroom one a week or two ago. They've discovered molecules in that prevent the telomeres from shortening. And now they have drugs out that also do this. They have been tinkering so much with nature that, they even have the immortal jellyfish, about 5-6 different kinds of those. And they're taking the genetics from that, creating things. So we're about to get to a point where they're going to tell you that they have all these technologies, but you have to enter their system to be able to take advantage of these things. You'll have to be totally opted in to be able to get these. And other people that say, I don't know, go hunt wild boar to eat because that's the food source that they have and it's abundant and it's on the earth. And you can argue it's a nuisance, but it's there and it feeds you. Not to mention growing your own beef and things like that they're trying to end, basically private ownership of beef. I've seen several things like that.
It's a shame, though, because
yeah,
farming has been with us. Well, what do you think helped America as a country itself go from? Well, the sad part is I'd read accounts of where a squirrel could never touch the ground running from New York to Louisiana and never touch the ground. But when we get out west, when it got outside of that zone across the Mississippi, going out towards where you live out there, it was more grasslands and, the buffalo and the cattle production and the meat production and that sort of thing. And I know we decimated the buffalo and took them under, a couple 100,000 off their millions of the herd to try to starve the first peoples out. But after that period was finished, the thing that started to bring up a lot of the economy was cattle ranching. So, in symbiosis with the cattle and with the bison at the same time. Not a lot of people talk about this. In the mid to say late 1800s, they were commingling those two species. And because the buffalo provided an enormous amount of, resource for first peoples, that they just tried to remove that because they didn't and hadn't had the same, I guess, usage of what we consider cattle and the parts of the cattle compared to the bison that they'd use for thousands of years. So the hide's a little thinner on a regular, what we consider cattle, or the horns are different, the hooves are different, the meat's different. Everything's very different from a bison, which, you've probably seen those things like 7 feet tall. I'll stand to this thing and look up at bison. Cow, I'm just kind of looking at it like, hey, what are you doing? Very different animals, processing different. The byproducts are different. Everything that was different, including the tents and everything that could be made in terms of like clothing and everything that could be used from that animal. Because you got to realize first people's never wasted anything ever. All the way down to the littlest bone shard could be used for something. And then they came along and killed 1 million bison just for the tongues. But they were taking away the food source. So like, I'm trying to draw this parallel here. If we're coming out where there's a dual species and the one species that fed, housed, clothed, provided, and let an enormous amount, millions of people survive by using this one animal. If you remove that out, then we saw what the end result was after First Peoples were taken down into their reservation and then almost decimated to zero, which is such a sad thing. It was a genocide in itself. But come up to today, the exact same thing is happening. Our food sources being completely wiped away, things that allow us to survive. It is like 2.0, but it's us now. It is our species, our time. This is the exact same thing that whatever it is upon, above, on high is wiping out our food source, on the protein source, on the things that allow us to survive. You know, and you look back in these chapters of history and I look at it and go, you know, I just had this revelation of, you know, they took out the bison and they removed the protein source and the actual hide source out. So there was no longer shelter for a lot of transient and nomadic peoples. And for us, it's the same thing. They're removing our protein. For us, that's the like weightlifting, you know, muscle source for us. They're removing to make weak our human race. We are being starved out. No different than First Peoples were. And I don't care what continent you're going to, whether it's Australia, or whether it's South America, or whether it's here. But we are now on a global starve out. It is, the parallels are so scary right now of what had happened prior. And if you go down to the Aboriginal peoples over in Australia and you see that, I mean, it is happening to us right now. So learn from the past. All I say is your past is the history book to the future. Crystal ball, everybody goes, crystal ball, crystal ball. No, it's a history book. It's a history book.
And this is kind of how they're going to bring it all together. This fits into your bills you're going to pay, what foods you're going to eat, what medicines you're going to take, where you're going to go, when you're going to go, and an AI system that can scan you, decide that if you're too moody or not moody, and inject their medicines into you. And they're selling it en masse. There's one for diabetes. Here's one for rheumatoid arthritis. Eventually, there's going to be a standard implant, and you won't be able to get health insurance if you don't have the implant. That'll be the trade-off.
Well, save some money every month.
Yeah, this implant, you know, everybody was worried about the mark of the beast and the money system. It's way more than that. It's your healthcare system. It's where you're going to be able to shop, where you're going to be able to travel. All of it is going to end up in this chip that's basically an implant. And think about a world where they can instantly change your behavior via your health care provided implant. So these things are now designed to do a lot of different things. Inject nanoparticles that, you know, there's always a benefit to the technology that they're going to sell you on. Just like the telomere thing, they can say, well, these nanobots can repair your telomeres. They can keep you from aging. They can destroy cancer cells, but they can also deliver medications directly inside you, changing your mood and altering your behavior at a moment's notice.
Or they can rip apart your telomeres and make them shorter in an instant as well.
Exactly. If you're a bad, you know, citizen on the end of things, they can reverse all of the beneficial things. Just like that protein that they were putting in the mice. If they put the protein, it grows old, it gets sick, it dies. If they block the protein, it lives longer, it's healthier, it heals up faster. This is where the technological and the biological are going to go together. It's something as simple as health insurance.
C60, absolutely. You know, those mice experiments that they did, C60, you know, the buckyball C60,
right,
actually whacked those tumors out of the mice. And not medical advice, but C60, as if you can find a pure source, I'm just saying it really extended the life of all those mice that had the tumors. Just it's peer-reviewed science. There's no like debating.
Just think about the choice that they're giving you now. They're telling you that they can fix all these things. They're telling you that all these things are rising and skyrocketing, these problems, the cancers, the, you know, illnesses, they're rising. There's risk of pandemics, which we'll get into in a minute. They're, you know, pushing around a new thing for everybody to be scared of. But this is the answer. And this answer only takes the next 10 years or 15 years to implement. When there are millions of people that do not want to get kicked off their health insurance and they feel like they need that, rightly so or not, they're going to have to interact with this technocratic system or they will be cut off. And, you know, I've been watching videos of people, getting upset because certain rules are going into effect in different states about their food stamps and what the, electronic soup kitchen card can buy them. So they're moving over to a whole new model that will punish you for being bad, but supposedly, let you into the system here. And this will also be an answer to the fertility problem or sterilization problem, really, but the fertility problem that everybody's worried about. This will allow people to live longer in conjunction with some of these other technologies like genes from the immortal jellyfish or, different proteins or enzymes they're finding. And it's all going to coalesce into a insurance style healthcare system where you have to opt in. And, everybody else will start to see real life effects. So we're at a crossroads right now on how they're going to monetize individual lifespan. They've been trying for a really long time. And one of the ways that they're kind of kettling people into this is restricting energy, restricting access to water, restricting access to freedom of food choices. And then on top of that, the complete dumbing down of populations where they don't even understand the technology that's, it's being weaponized against them. But this is where we're going for everything, including the monetary system. You won't be able to go places or participate in buying or ordering things. And, we were talking about that a few years ago, too. Stores are starting to close. They're going to the online format, which is being promoted, especially by Walmart now, not to even come into their store. Don't come into the store. Don't even come into the parking lot to your little, self-service parking lot that they started doing. But no, we'll just take it right to you. That way you can stay home and stay out of everybody's business. Literally.
Yeah, let me pop onto buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. So Max MAXX, thank you so much. Bought us 10 double espresso. Stay strong, stay the course, and thank you. No, thank you for the support, because we try to bring in the information every week, and we got running costs on the software here, and it costs money to bring the program. Computer issues. There's a lot that's going on with costs, and everything wants to get you on a subscription model. So you buy a piece of software, and then you can't get anything that does the auto translate to try to take an episode and bring down the transcript and get the summary from it to put out the show notes. That's not free. Everything's on a subscription. You just can't buy something anymore. I'm so shocked that everything is on a subscription model now. Like when we try to put out the show notes and do all this stuff, that's subscription model. You can't buy the software to do that. Every month, recurring expense. But One-Eyed Jack bought us a double espresso. Thank you. The Calculator.com gas world dice roll. I don't know what that is. That's a link. Click at your own discretion on that. One-Eyed Jack, I don't know the link what that is, but please tell us what it does or what it is. And Allison Bevege bought us 5 double espressos. No comment, please. Throw a comment. I'd love to answer a question. So would Ransom. And someone, again, thank you, every week comes on. 3 double espressos. Thank you, BB. Well, BB, thank you. And again, what can we do with that for to help try to promote the show or get some new graphs, do something like this. And Catherine Barlow, thanks for being here every week and keeping us in the know. Bought us a double espresso. It's not about you being in the know or we being in the know. It's about everybody being in the know, because as we see right now, there's so many things going on that are trying to corral us into a certain way and a certain behavior. And there has to be other ways. There has to be solutions out of this. We can't all just get stuck in this with no way out. It's never been like that in human history. There's always been a way out. There were the hippies, and there were people living on the land, and they can't get everybody at 100% into some system. You have to volunteer to go into it. My grandparents never believed in credit cards. Oh, they were so against it when we were growing up. My grandparents would tell me, your dad and mom got credit cards. You do not get one of those. They're going to put you into debt. You're going to lose. But now you can't even exist or even think about existing without a credit card or a debit card, right? Like that's just part of daily life. Well, my grandparents were super against that. Now, what are we going to, like, I'm going to be talking to somebody's young or, children or grandchildren going, don't do that CBDC. That's bad. They're going to corral you in there. There has to be a way out because humanity never gets trapped at 100% into one direction. There always is some escape valve. And you talked about that show Silo, which I haven't found yet because I didn't subscribe to that, whatever subscription service it's on. But that would make sense that naturally, either from the cosmos or from our local sun or star, that there's going to be some sort of particles that ignite brain activity, and also with the genetics in there, that nobody is ever going to be 100% compliant. They're going to try to bring you through. And, these eugenics through the years were always about they always trick you into, oh, it's the superior race. Oh, it's the super athlete. Oh, it's the this or that. No, it was about a compliant population. The whole thing about eugenics was never about a super race. They might sell you that at the top to try to get you to hate those people. The whole thing about eugenics was to breed a slave class. And if you think it's anything else, I'm sorry, you drank the Kool-Aid. You need to leave the show because you're in the very wrong place if you believe that. Eugenics is about breeding the most compliant population, the most docile population that will say yes and comply and agree to every single thing that the government says. That's what eugenics was about. It was not about a super race. Completely different. So, Catherine Barlow, thank you. And again, it's all about us. We're all in this, capsule together. So the more people talking about this, the more solutions that are out there, the more ideas that are out there, the more ideas we can compare, the better we're going to be, so we can all get through this more cleanly is the best way to term. We're at a juncture in civilization right now. So if we can all work together to find solutions, I think it's going to be a better way out. So it's not about me and Ransom sitting here talking about, hey, we think about this. We want your input. So please give us the input. We want your ideas so we can compare ideas and, solutions as well for things. We talk about some problems that are out there, some, trends we see coming around the edge. But again, it's all about how do you weave, and, it's like going through a minefield, if you will. So if the CBDCs are coming in, is your land paid off? Do you have any gold and silver? Can you exist outside the system? Which state are you in? Do they offer availability of gold and silver to pay property taxes so you can keep your land even though you have a loan against it from a bank somewhere? There's ways to kind of move through the minefield the next 5 to 7 years. But after that, I just don't know. Right now, there are solutions to move through as this thing is kind of collapsing in on us, right? But after 2032 or 2033, something like this, when that Agenda 2030 goals are going to snap shut, where does it take us from there? I don't have an idea really yet because it's too far out. Things are too fluid right now. Everything's in motion at this very second of trying to get you to comply. And, if I might just say one more thing, like the central bank digital currencies, they're here. It's called stable coins for the US. It's called CBDCs in Europe. They're the different names, different nomenclature. Please understand, words are important. Your compliance is necessary. So in 2027, they're going to start to require that you give up your paper money and turn it into the digital format. But I don't think they're going to give you a 1-to-1 or less than 1 or like a 10. You have to give $10 to get one new coin. That nobody would accept them. No. I think that the compliance, your voluntary compliance, is the number one thing they need. So if they can give you a 2-to-1 or a 5-to-1, okay, give us $1 paper and we'll give you 5 new dollars. But by the way, they're already worth 5 paper dollars. We just love you so much, or we're going to give you a 2-to-1 where you give us $1, we'll give you 2 stable coins because we love you. They want you to comply. They want you to just flow into the system. They want it to be seamless. There's no agitation, no friction. They need you to flow into it. So the offerings of never-ending flows of money for, pledging your crypto onto, lend us your Bitcoin, we'll give you a loan. This whole thing, the world is shifting. And this programmable money is a terrifying thing. Like Ransom was saying, if you decide that you don't want the health care, then what? Like we can talk about that for a second, because if you say we talked about healthcare. I don't want it anymore. If they're going to start to make us go through these hoops and hurdles, and you saw that thing where you need to implant it in your body or you can't get healthcare, okay, I'm going to opt out of healthcare. I don't want it anymore. I truly don't. But then what happens? Oh, we just don't want to let you transact with money unless you get healthcare. That's what happens. Then what? They're going to program your money so it all goes to zero unless you get healthcare? That's worse than Obamacare. So you can see this programmable money can like twist you in a different direction. And again, these negative interest rates. So let's say you get $1,000 a UBI or something, and then the government says, if you don't spend it in the next 3 months, it goes to zero. Well, then they can spur economic activity any way they want it to go. It's not you just want to hold it. Hey, things are getting bad. I want to turn it into gold or silver. It's just going to not be like that. So buyer beware, or user beware, or whatever beware. Ransom mute.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
The obvious question, are you on shrooms? Illuminated shrooms, combining 6 powerful mycelium in a fulvic mineral delivery system, selected for their synergistic, restorative, and protective actions. Potent organic extracts of Cordyceps for stamina, lion mane for cognition, Reishi for longevity, Chaga for detoxification, Agaricus for resistance, nutrient-rich turkey tail, a new standard and excellent illuminated shrooms from Alfa Vedic. And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, every purchase you make helps keep this podcast on air, bringing information just like this, because we're at this critical juncture right now in our civilization, our society. We need to share information more than ever. We need more solutions than ever. And sponsors like Alfa Vedic keeping us on air just like this. Your support to them helps support us. because we need to go through this together. And the more discussion, the more solutions, the easier it's going to be. So please remember that link's in the description box below. And are you shrooming? That's a great question. Are you shrooming? It's about trying to use what is known through the historical past as being bioavailable to help us battle against some of these things that are in our environment here. And the mushrooms are well known in to uptake a lot of different, let's say toxins, for example, metals, heavy metals, etc. But the same thing that occurs in your body, it uptakes it and then it flushes it out. Not medical advice, not anything like that. But I'm just saying, you know, as you look through, you know, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, different medicines, cleansings throughout the world, it all revolves a lot around pretty much the same things. And as we come in, I wanted to start the second hour here, and thank you so much for joining us for this second hour of Civilization Cycle and staying with us. This is, you know, as we come in, I wanted to show you something else here. I want to share the screen if I could. I want to add a scene here. We are going to come back out into the 250 millibar charts. And let me see if I can get this screen on. I always need to, yeah, let me show you this chart here. So remember, as you're looking at it, I'll scroll the mouse around. So lower pressure means cooler temperatures, higher pressure means higher temperatures, and a faster wind speed as well. The velocity of the wind is moving. So what's interesting is the wind speed and the heat in Canada and across further up past BC, higher up going toward Alaska. Notice the banding of everything. This is interesting in itself. Generally, it's not this banded. When you see this, when you're looking at 250 millibars, let me see, you're around 33,000 or 34,000 feet in altitude. I'm trying to remember the chart. 33 to 34,000 feet. You can double check on that if you think I quoted it wrong. But notice the striations there. The same thing that we saw this winter when it was really cold and wet way down coming into south. And then we start to see the same thing. Look at the dark banding off the chart again. We're going below the zone of wind. This is meters per second again. We're talking about wind speed. Like when we looked at that last chart, maybe 2 shows ago around the equator, the easterlies were blowing in the wrong time of the year at off the chart where they should have been in the westerlies. So though I'm not going to say the entire vortice of the equatorial band was reversing, but within that, there was a huge discrepancies of where the easterlies were blowing inside the westerlies. Like you had those bands, generally the whole pattern blows west, but you had those striations that were blowing east off the chart, by the way, at 60 miles an hour plus in the opposite direction. So we're starting to see something very, very similar to this. And the reason I would bring it up is this brings us through, you know, the end of July here. And this is what is talking about, if I can bring you up to the top of the chart or the top of the article here. Again, Severe Weather EU, they got some of the best charts up and they try to squash the information together. August starts cooler across the U.S., but forecast pressure reversal will bring changes to weather patterns. So they're talking about extremes. They're not talking about temperature. It is in a variance, but they are talking about extremes when these winds reverse on themselves. We're going to get springtime tornadoes coming into September, and that's rare. So the vortices that this is creating is off the charts here. So I'll give you look at this. I mean, is that normal for August temperatures? I don't think so. Everybody's squawking about the record heat, but you know, when you look over Greenland, poster child for ice melt, but the ice is increasing. So you won't hear about that on the news because it goes against the narrative there. And, you know, 500 millibar, you're talking about 15,000 feet ish. You're really not that high in the atmosphere, but you can see there's difference as well. The lower on that is also temperature wise, but I like to look right there's the band again. They were pointing it out that's a very strange banding across Canada. And if you come further down, look at the precipitation, the temperature anomalies here too. You know, Weather Bell does with Joe Bastardi up there with Weather Bell. Like the temperatures along what's that up there, and going up into Nova Scotia, those temperatures are far below normal even in Canada right now. So what is this going to portend for the winter? You might get some even or balanced temperatures coming out to the US. And then if we look at the precipitation anomalies, this is another interesting thing. So the bands of precipitation are matched up with the temperatures. So where you have these lower temperature spots, you also have lower precipitation. You think it would be the opposite, where the lower the temperature would draw in the moisture because of the daytime and the nighttime difference in the heating, where it would create like dense fog or dense dew and that sort of thing, and there would be measurable precipitation differences in that, and cause systems to form around that difference in the flow of wind, of the pressure difference. That should create some sort of difference where in the atmospheric column, it creates a swirl that draws in and it starts to rain out. But it's the opposite. That's so crazy. It's the very opposite of textbook meteorology. This is the baffling thing. It's the opposite of what we've known in meteorology so far. So then we look at this and go, oh, okay, precipitation's off where the wind should draw the precipitation in. So I'm going to leave like this map here, and maybe we'll come down last summer month forecast. Okay. And again, when you're looking at these really deep lows up here, you're talking about cooler temperatures as well. Like the pressure difference is between that red and blue arrow there. When you get these winds pushing against each other, like how is Canada warmer than it is in the southern United States? The inverse of this. So down here in Georgia and Tennessee is going to be cooler than it is up somewhere in like northern Alberta or northern Saskatchewan. Like this banded array, and then these volcanic eruptions coming out of Russia are not going to help this at all either. So, and I'll say one last thing here, Ransom, is that, let me turn this off for you if I can. The last thing, I had a discussion with somebody today saying, oh my gosh, what is going to happen with, oh wait, how did I not stop sharing that? Get that out of there. Help me, Ransom. There you go. Thanks. I had a discussion with somebody today. It was asking me, hey, what about the volcanic eruption after the tsunami up in Russia? And I was like, very cleanly, that's at like 60 north. And that ash is going to get captured in that last cloud cell going to the North Pole. So the ash around there might cause some melting of ice, because when the ash lands on the ice, it's darker and it'll absorb heat from the sunlight. But in terms of ash fall disrupting crops, there's very little grown at 60 north and above, like almost nothing. There might be something in greenhouses, but those are captured anyway, so the ash wouldn't affect unless it really blocks the glass but it's so minimal. I mean, you're talking about a rounding error, literally on a thousandth of a percent rounding error on global production. So there's really nothing at 60 north and above. But would it create more conditions for sunlight to strike that and cause more melting of the ice? That's a different factor to look into. So the volcanic eruption coming off, it's going to spin around. It's absolutely getting captured, but that ash is going on the North Pole, and I'll leave it there.
How's that going to tie into all that wildfire smoke up in Canada? I mean, think about the amount of junk in the air. If you add the volcanoes and the stuff in Canada going on, seems like we are, lining up for an extremely cold winter.
Yeah, because you got to think about those pressure cells that are coming down to the stratospheric warming events that always push that cold air down. What if it's super amplified cold from all the ash and all the wildfire smoke that's captured in that 60 north to the North Pole cloud cell? And then that's just the base for everything to go off of that as it spins down. And really, the perturbations in there and the ash fall and the density and the optical thickness is what you're really looking at when you're talking about optical thickness, like how much density of ash is in a cubic meter of space up there, cubic meter, and like how much ash or volcanic ash is in there, wildfire smoke, and then how much it stops and prevents, sunlight from coming through that, which warms the ground or not. Yeah, if it comes to that point where it's really saturated during the winter, as we go into winter, it's going to be a brutal winter, because once that gets knocked out of place with whatever stratospheric warming event, that is going to roll over whatever part of the northern hemisphere that goes over. And that is going to be, if you ever seen a storm system come in where it just comes down and you can see those black clouds coming and it just covers everything, you're going to look at something like that with ash, and that ash is going to drop temperatures. I can't give I won't give a number, but it's going to be significantly cooler than record temperatures would be set during this time based on that ash density, or the optical thickness density. Yeah, this winter might be cooler, actually.
I was thinking all those, those guys that try to hang themselves on a block of ice, they'll have a better time this year because it's going to be colder. I doubt, you ever notice that when it's really cold, less of those guys come out, doing their climate protests. They never do that in the winter for some reason. I don't know what it is.
It's too cold for them to be outside. Are you kidding me? Rata bastardes.
Right. I kind of wanted to get back into this transition because
go for it, man. I hogged up too much time. Please jump.
No, that's all right. I read a comment on the Rumble channel. Somebody was talking about, we've been talking about all this stuff from back 2000 era, that there was going to be some kind of thing that changed the world. And, they were saying it never happened. I still have to pay my bills month after month, year after
More
year.
expensive.
I know, right? And I was thinking, well, there's been a lot of change and it all happens at once. And kind of, that thing I was talking about the implants and the insurance thing, it's going to be just like a cell phone, where one day you'll just notice everyone has it. And then it'll become increasingly hard to do things without it, just like the phone was. And, this whole model that we're going to in the US is quite bizarre, because they're trying to, you remember when small town America got closed down by the big corporation, by the Walmarts, by the dollar stores. Now those are trying to transition over to don't even come to our store. Or if you do, stay outside, we'll bring it to you. Putting all the liability kind of on you on getting your goods to your house, or they're just going to deliver it. And it's getting so crazy that they're even, like, this is the future of business, really.
These so sad, man. I've seen
the drones
so many
everywhere.
Ghost towns. I live in East Tennessee, and a lot of small towns we drive through are just ghost towns. Yeah, some businesses are coming back, like little boutique antique shops and little coffee shops, like right there. And that's the way they're revitalizing these towns. But it's not like it used to be, where it was really like industrial powerhouses in these small towns. They just Hiroshima, these small towns around here.
Right. This is the sales pitch end of it, in my opinion. Drones delivering coffee, pizza, goods, like it's all over the place. But this is the reality of it, right? With drones fighting mosquitoes for, everything's going to be turned over to drone control and AI control, even the pandemics. Like, I'm sure you've been seeing lots of articles building about this mosquito-borne, I don't even know how to say that, chikungunya, whatever.
Chikungunya.
Well, they'll drop it down to something
I'm just going to pronounce it the way I can read, like the pinyin. It's chikungunya.
Right. Where was
my best
drone? So I was looking at this other drone. It's the reality of it. I lost it right here somewhere. But this is kind of where I'm going with this. What do you think? Why do you think we would need a nuclear reactor on the moon to power AI to keep the system going, right? From a place that it'll never be shut down from. There will be no climate activist, complaining about the massive amounts of power they're using, or none of that. It's not going to go up there. So like a satellite system, this thing is expanding off of Earth, and it's getting kind of.
They need a way to transmit the information back down to Earth, though. That's another thing. Like, what high-tech devices do they have? You can use Starlink now, and that's great and everything. And if satellites go down, or internet goes down, you can still do transactions on the blockchain. But If you're going to roll up to the moon, like that's a serious distance back down here.
Right. But, if AI slowly pushes out media, which is happening, here's a title right here of this article: AI search pushing an already weakened media ecosystem to the brink. AI is replacing all of these things. It's where we get our information from. And then it'll be easy to transition to other topics where there's really only one voice, one authority behind it. Here's what I was talking about earlier in the show. Open the X Files. Trump's top U.S. intelligence chief says she believes in aliens and vows to share the truth on UFOs. Right. And then you have this thing rocketing towards Earth where people have been rumoring for years that a ship is just going to show up. But really, down here on the Earth, things that we predicted are happening. So where's this other one about the there it is. Federal judge strikes down California's unconstitutional deepfake law. Now, do you think this is to protect you against misinformation or disinformation? No, I don't think it is. I think it's because, like I said, everybody is being turned over to the AI, including your government. Right here, a politician made an AI clone of himself. The outrage was real. So basically, he just made somebody to interact with everybody. So, all of those accounts you see, you think you're really telling the politician something. You're most likely talking to a bot that they've hired, because that will be the new ministry of truth. The AI backed up by, this massive AI network of information where they control it, all the way to the point that when we're out, the last little traces of you will be an AI tool that writes about you when you die. So it'll tell you what you were about. But the whole thing is like this. This is where all information is going. It's being basically put into a monopoly. And I was trying to find this one while you kind of respond to that. I was looking for this article. So there was this new drone that China has. I can't find it for some reason. But anyway, it was a drone that's like a little spider. You remember you were talking about the spider a few videos back that was doing the farming. It would come up in there and do that. Well, this is
now, if I could explain, it was multiple appendages where this thing actually went along like a spider, and the front two appendages were with lasers, so they could go on either side of the row, and then they could, hit the weeds with whatever high heat and destroy the weeds. And then in the second appendage, they had different, they pulled something behind it. It was like a little cart, but it had herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and rodenticides in there. I don't know if it was really rodenticide, but I saw rodenticide earlier in that article you were talking about. So I'm sure it would be included. But I know they had fungicides, herbicides, and these sort of things to hit. And, when you're going through an area and you're throwing an herbicide down, generally you're trying not to kill all the target species that you want to grow. But if you're that refined where AI can go in and put like literally one drop on a weed it had already zapped or something, that point, this is where you get into micromanagement. But these robots, as you would think micromanagement, like, oh, that takes so long for them to go down the rows and like hit one. They were actually walking like we were, and they cleared an entire row as fast. Well, I would say about half the speed as a human would walk, but everything was done in those rows. That would take us how many multiple hours to pull the weeds out of there? This thing just went along and just went along. And then they had an extendable arm on the third arm that could come up and like clip, say, dead leaves off and pull them down and things. These were in the middle of the rows, and they looked very much like spiders, like you're talking about. Scary, even. If I hadn't seen those things, I would really be, coming across, driving across the field somewhere, or, out west or any other place. You come and you see like 100 of those out in the fields. I'd be like, oh my gosh, we just got invaded here. That was a moth on my face.
Right. And that's exactly my point, because
moths love me.
Just like that little spider robot can do better, faster work than a human, the same goes for killing and colonizing. For some reason, the picture won't.
Black Mirror had an episode of these same types of robots, didn't they?
Right. For some reason, the picture won't show up, but it's
the same thing. It looks very like crouched down and kind of thing. Yeah.
And this thing can be. Let's see. How do you put that? They can send thousands of these things into a city. And the one that they're specifically talking about here is a Chinese model drone that fires missiles. It can go underwater, so it's a submersible. So basically, they drop it off from a ship. You could drop off 100, 10 of them, 1,000 of them, whatever you wanted. They go in the water, they show up on the shore, they start crawling on the shore, and they can shoot missiles off their back. And it's funny because it wasn't less than a decade ago when we first started doing the show with you, um, that I was talking about. Watch, they're going to turn this dog, they're going to put a gun on it,
Yeah.
and that'll be the next
Spot.
thing. And then some
They
kid,
introduced it as so soft. It's Spot. It's a
right?
yellow. It's a yellow, cute dog. It's Spot.
And then they denied it. All the companies denied it. We would never use our robots for these things.
Never.
And then some kid bought one and he put a Nerf gun on it and he showed exactly what I was talking about. And it wasn't but a year later, after that video went viral, that all of the military and industrial complex things started showing their new robots. And that's exactly what they were these dogs. But these that you saw are already outdated, obsolete. The new stuff that they got moves really fast. So these little things can crawl into a city, shoot missiles, they can mount guns on them. It's really getting crazy, the amount of stuff that they're doing. But we're going to need all of it for the aliens, right?
Yeah, let me
You're
see if
not
I
going
can
to be
send you one. Why are you doing that? Because the whole thing is, these are like you're talking about with Starlink. If we get an EMP or something off the sun and all the Starlink satellites go down, they can just boot an enormous amount back up again in just a few months. If the deep underground bases are true and they have Faraday cages across all that technology, then if we get an EMP, something very large like a Carrington event, like an X 22, 42, 52, 100, whatever it would be at that magnitude, most everything would be fried here. But then with Starlink and that sort of thing, all those disposable satellites, they could pop them back up there in a second, just like these robots. They're all disposable. So once they come ashore, they're disposable. They're meant to get ruined and broken and fought against and thing. They're just like one wave after another wave. They're disposable. They're not meant to last. They're disposable. Great. It can cross across sand, get all gouged up in the bearings and what, it doesn't matter. As long as it lasts 36 hours to do its purpose, that's fine. And that's the way they're looking at this. It's not about longevity. Oh, we need this thing needed to last for 20 years or something. It gets into the battle. It does its thing. It's gone, gets blown up, mortars coming in on it, whatever, people shooting at it. Doesn't matter. It's just as long as it's done and then it accomplishes the mission. That's all it is. Let me send you this video because I have one that will scare. You will not sleep tonight when I send you this robotic video. So Ransom, please take the show here for a second while I get you this video.
Yeah, it's funny because I searched through these articles and I think that the spider scared people too much because they removed the imagery of it and now they're showing these old dogs and these old drones and stuff. It is so much further than that now, and they're going to have a unified network of control over all of this stuff. So it's not going to be long. I'm sure you've seen Elysium, that movie Elysium, where they had all the robot dogs and police that were men type humanoid robots, and they were just as mean as any police. It's absolute, do what I say or you get beat down by the robot. And then they showed like Chappie. They had the police robot police humanoid people. That's exactly where it's going to go. So I keep saying it's going to go. It's already there. So all we need is the spark of an international war, and then it'll be on, where all you will see is a robotic war that only has casualties, not really in the soldier department, but more in the civilian aspect of things.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying. It's on Zero Hedge. I want to find this thing for you because when I saw it, it was absolutely ridiculously annoying, or my brain couldn't wrap around what I saw in terms of this robot that was moving through. Like if you want to check on Zero, I'm trying to find it for you. So just throw on another article while I look through. I'm going to find this for you, and I'm going to send you the link, and please show this because, by the time you even realize how far you're explaining the same exact thing. Like these robots that we're looking at right now that they're showing you in the like the cutesy type of thing, and they're doing parkour and thing. This is so far behind what the technology really is. And this technology that they're allowing us to see publicly here is so terrifying that there's no way to escape this. If they send it on to you or send it on to
Oh yeah, it flies too. It walks, it swims,
it walks, it
flies.
crawls, it grinds, it goes uphill, downhill, it can go up steps, it can go across ice, it can go across sand, scree slopes. It doesn't matter. This thing is like literally an unstoppable. I don't know how you would you'd have to aim for some sort of junction point. I've seen a few people that, when Spot first came out, they showed where the vulnerability points were if you had an AR that you could take out some of these points where some of these XYZ axes were that you could take that out if you were a good shot, that you could take out one of the robots. But now they've all been super hardened with carbon fiber steel and thing. It's going to be
get a little titanium,
wait, here it is.
Kevlar.
They call it the Stellar Hunter. And you're absolutely gonna piss yourself when you see this, and I kid you not. So let me send you the link, Ransom. And if you could, know what? Let me grab the screen here, and I'm gonna put it up myself, if you don't mind.
No, of course not.
Save the middleman. Here we go. Hunted. Are you where? This is our future here. So, this little robot right here that you see this was in the Black Mirror episode that they were talking about. Okay. If you've ever seen that Black Mirror, I highly encourage anybody to watch this because it was the end of the world thing and they went into a warehouse and these things were protecting all the goods in the warehouse. And this came hunting everybody and they found all these different places where the things had been prior. Okay, ready? Here we go. I'm hoping it's still live. Oh, there it is. I'm going to expand it out live here to you. And this is in real time what these robots can do. They can balance like this, and they're just kind of showing off what these things can do. Company's called Unitree. Now, I thought at first some of this was AI generated, but when you start to see how this thing moves in real time on the grass and on the ground right there, when it comes in and do you think this is an AI generated image and video? That's my question, because are they trying to psyop us into thinking that these things are so real, so advanced that they can do this? But they're coming down such steep slopes at such ridiculous speeds. The metals on this thing too, like you have to think about what types of alloys would be involved with this and what is the production cost for this with such alloys. But this thing could climb up the Great Pyramid of Egypt and meet you at the top. This is the thing also. Maybe not at a 5 or 6 foot span, but they're already up at 3 feet. And look at this thing coming down steps so quickly. Now, is this AI generated? This is the whole thing. Is this an AI generated video to scare you, or is this real? Because in this world, we just don't know. But the speed at this thing, you're never, ever in your wildest dream going to outrun this. And they've got LiDAR and different types of like night vision and thermal scopes and this thing. You're never, ever, ever going to get rid of these things. You're going to need an handheld EMP device that blasts this with an EMP. There's no conventional going against this thing.
You see this little thing right here? This is an old school Chinese DJI or DJI.
Yeah,
it goes
DJI,
42 miles an
that.
hour. It goes 42 miles an hour, this thing. So you could add anything you wanted to this, and it becomes a lethal device immediately. And this is kind of what we're going to have to deal with, because they are changing all the industries over to this. This is another one. United blames technology disruption for 1,000+ flight delays. So we know that not only the air traffic controlling system, but the planes themselves are all going to be turned over to AI, because humans are not trustworthy enough to run the stuff. And here's this. I watched it. Well, if I can get rid of that.
Never see
I
the
watched
box again. Okay. We'll never see it. Bye-bye.
I watched the interview with James Cameron, and then I saw this this article right here where it says James Cameron warns of Terminator-style apocalypse if AI is weaponized, and the claim is if it's weaponized. Now, in the interview, he did more than just talk about, the fantastical idea of robots, hunting or killing humans or even hunting and fighting each other, but he also was talking about the fact that he cannot write anymore. That the AI is so powerful now that he's struggling to come up with new things to show public because the technology has now surpassed their ability to make up fictional ideas. It's already past that. So everything under the sun that's possible has already been shown in an AI movie to the point where they don't even know where it's going. They're having trouble coming up with ideas because they're competing with reality that already exists. And then this one, scientists want to prevent AI from going rogue by teaching it to do bad things first. It's almost the same idea is, releasing a disease out because you have the cure for it. So we want to, disrupt the whole world by you seeing how bad the AI can go so that we supposedly can control it. Now, if anything, I've shown you numerous articles where it demonstrates that despite what they programmed, the AI decided or did something that was not in its programming, all the way to changing its programming, hiding, refusing to be turned off, and straight up going maniacal or crazy on lots of different instances. So if you have scientists that are literally giving the AI new bad ideas, like maybe, hey, look, you could hack this, you could hack that, you could do this, you could do that, and then their claim is don't worry. It's almost like you remember when McAfee sold his company, and a lot of people swore to God that the antiviral software was the virus itself. People were claiming that. I don't know if you could kind of what your opinion is on that, but it seemed to be that the answer to the problem was the problem itself, and that seems to be where the AI is going right now, at least the way that they're rolling it out. And you're right, it's a completely disposable thing. So when I go back over
I had
here,
an interview with McAfee. Like during the COVID lockdown, he's like, hey, if you want to do an interview with me, just write me and I'll do an interview with you. And then I did. I wrote him and say, hey, John, I'd love to talk to you.
right?
And we got on an interview. It was about it was a half hour. It's 30, gave me 30 minutes. So we're talking about crypto and like, where the world's going and this sort of thing.
That's before the schwacking.
Before the schlacking. Yes, indeed. Before he got arrested, even before that was even before that.
You know that
we talked about Guatemala for a minute and this sort of thing, and Honduras, and he was down in Belize and that sort of thing. Like, what's really going on with these places of the most ancient of societies, where at least the impression that I got from him was like, you understand Tikal and El Mirador and these more ancient cities. There used to be a connected grid of some sort of electricity. And the same thing, if you go into the Middle East, all these ancient sites are now desert. Before, if you look down on it from a satellite view, it looks very much like a grid board, like a circuit board from now. Whole thing it sort of alluded to these things are sort of being reconstructed and reconnected for some electrical purpose to try to bring back an earth grid, something like that. In addition to the crypto and the blockchain running on top of that. So if you think about layering, like the most ancient of our civilizations were the bedrock of the electrical system for that interoperability of the entire Earth's electrical grid, much like we have electrical grids today in big cities and all these things. But we're in a different place. Like a lot of these places we're in now are vegetative zones where the old ancient civilizations are in desert zones. So if you really look on top of this, there's thousands of photos where they'll look down on an ancient city that's in the desert and they'll compare it with the circuit board of modern day circuit board. Or if you go into some cathedrals and what looks like a labyrinth is nothing more than a circuit board. And they compare all these things through history here. But somehow with the rainfall patterns coming back, a lot of these places are going to become viable again, because you're not looking, like when we think about electricity, what we have been programmed with, it's copper wiring. It's not, it's water. Water is the conduit that powers most of these things. Salt water, even better. But we've been trained to think that it's always copper wires, silver wires, electric solar panels, electric, silver wiring. But what if it's water that connects the biggest and the most large of what would can be considered power capacitors on the planet? It's not wires. Wires would be minuscule in comparison to rivers, underground aquifers, underground oceans. This is the sort of direction that he was taking it in our talk, but he wasn't specific about it. But now, years after this, I understand what he was trying to tell me, or at least allude to me going in that direction. And look for the clues, dude. You got some basic knowledge. You're not enough to be dangerous, but you just don't know shit. Get over there and learn yourself, is kind of the way he was pushing me off on a lot of answers and things. So I'll leave it there. McAfee, brilliant guy. I do believe Monero is still the way to go if you're going to try to transact anonymously after we get into this track and trace thing. If you're going to still do online, you're still going to need Monero. It's the number one most liquid. You can go to like Zcash and Pirate Chain too, but if you're looking at liquidity, you're going to go to Monero first. Oh, by the way, if you're looking for something like that, FYI. But McAfee, he was a genius in himself. Like, this guy was too freedom oriented. He was so outside the system that he wanted to break humanity away from the system. And that was his downfall. Is like, I'll compare him also to Nikola Tesla. Like, the understanding he had of how technology could be harnessed to break away from this dark power that was trying to envelop us. His whole mission was to break us away. Just like Tesla was. And Marconi as well. And Dr. Brown with electrogravitics and things got, he swooped up everything, CIA and all the different secret programs that electrogravitics fell under after that. So if you want to go back in history, when you look at people who were trying to give us clues and indications on how you can break away from the civilization, he was one of them. And I give him kudos for his brilliant mind on that. I really think he was one of the top 10 minds of our at least century that existed at that time. Like, the way he understood, and he gave us the clues. Don't trust your antivirus software. They're inventing the viruses to get you to buy that stuff. I'll leave it there, man. I'm rambling.
Yeah, it seems like that's exactly what's going on with, all of the other options in life, like health, robotics, AI. The cause is the problem. The problem is the cause. It's more than a problem reaction solution. It's created and designed from the beginning. And, I think that's why, in my opinion, that we're moving to these kind of revolutionary ideas like nuclear reactors on the moon. We're ready to expand this technology out to where it never gets crushed again. And, when you talk about these ancient civilizations and all the seemingly power-orientated rock buildings and megalithic sites, from the pyramids all the way to like South America, you see these things that indicate that maybe, they had some kind of concept of the magnetic field and the interaction. And for all I know, that all of that was a worldwide network grid. These are the same people that, for the most part, knew about red ochre and protecting their skin. A lot of them indeed use that. So it's not too outlandish to think that possibly they understood cosmic rays or radiation coming from space, and they were attempting to protect themselves. And, last week you brought up this idea about these people putting seeds in and being charged up with different charges and things like that. That's literally exactly what some of the Neolithic people were doing with some of these megalithic sites. Is they would put seeds under it, believing that some kind of phenomenon was happening to the seeds, some kind of charge of some kind of energy that would make them grow better and their crops do better and all of that stuff. So it was real similar to what you were talking about with that other experiment where they were putting seeds and stuff under charges or maybe plants or something like that. I forgot exactly what you said.
Electroplates. Penny Kelly was telling me about this, where the person she had studied under, they were looking at different energies that are exuding out of the earth that spin in a vortex and create different formations. Crop circles would be a good way to say it, but that's maybe the worst way to say it. Not that the geometrical shapes were there in terms of like popping in and making all the circles and all the hexagons and triangles or whatever, but it was more about the vortices that come out of certain areas on the planet create shapes around them that could be either the quintessential crop circle itself or confused with others. So this is where you get into it. And the electrical difference and the potentiality of electrical difference between those two, when they found that the seeds that they harvested out of those areas, after they grew them again, had a completely different plant coming out of it. So they're like, okay, let's narrow this down. It's either going to be plasma or it's going to be electricity, one of the two, A or B choice. So they got different plates and they put different electrical charges into the plates on the substrate there. And it was just literally copper plates. And they put a charge into it. They changed the voltage, amperage, and they did a bunch of different experiments. But what they found was they could revert seeds back to the original way back before. So if you're looking at a corn stalk that comes up and you got maybe 5, 6, ears coming off of that, some of the reversions that they did with the electroplating was 20 ears coming off a single stalk. Like these things, cymatics, and that was something different. But putting electricity into the seeds really changed it. I mean, incredibly changed the output of the species. So the question was, and this is what really got them in trouble, was, have the seed companies been electroplating on reversion downward to try to reduce crop yields? Because if you can do electroplating and revert upward, had they through the last 50 to 70 years understood the same technologies after World War II with the electrovitics and all these things that the Germans had applied and figured out electric wise on how to raise objects and become weightless with them, had they taken that same technology to revert, they sold us all these herbicides, they sold us all these fertilizers, and they told us all these things, 1950s Green Revolution. And we did get higher crop yields, no doubt. But at the same time, were they tweaking the seed supply to revert it back down? Instead of a 20-ear yield on corn, they would give us 6 ears, but with more fertilizer in there, the ears would become larger on that, and we would appear that we had a larger crop yield. Also tapping us and limiting us to the amount of food we could grow on the planet. This is one of the things, you can take it for whatever you think it's worth, but it's a valid discussion. It truly is. Because, you talked about that, Ransom, with the nanobots in there, and they're going to repair telomeres on the body. Could they not damage and rip apart telomeres and shorten lifespan? Well, same thing. If you're going to electroplate seeds, could you electroplate them downward or upward? Both valid.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is a double-edged sword. The reason I kind of put up this cymatics image is because you were talking about these, like I said, there's been a lot of stories that possibly they were putting seeds under these Neolithic sites to charge them just almost in the exact same way that you're talking. But you have to remember, these are all waveforms: electricity, sound, light. At a certain vibration, we find out that they make these, perfect, not too perfect with the sand there, but if they do it at the right frequency, you get these sacred geometry things. And you're only looking at a slice of it. So this is just a slice of 2D, but the shape and the waveform is actually in a 3-dimensional shape. So if these ancient people knew these ideas, which obviously they did, because when you go to a lot of the ones in England and like Sardinia and different things, they had a specific acoustic pitch along with the quartzite rock shapes and different things. So they were at least touching on this knowledge of an invisible 3-dimensional waveform that came from different energies, not just light and vibration, sound, but you get these different shapes. So I'm sure that a lot of the crops crop circles were man-made and copies. However, if you could get an electromagnetic waveform shape that made a vibration, you would get exactly the sacred geometry shapes right into whatever field it was or crop it was. You would get that exact thing. And I think that these ancient people knew it. And that's where you get some of these stories. Because, if you get the right resonance and the right shape, you can literally make things fall apart. And I think this is somehow related to how they built and moved these large rocks. You get stories out of the Bible, like, when they walked around the temple there so many times, and then they blew their horn and they had the
That's
Ark of the
exactly it.
Covenant
Yeah,
with
I
them,
was going to say
and it
same
just
thing.
fell
The
apart, right?
walls fell down.
And you get the same thing kind of with earthquakes, tsunamis, and different things. You get these waveforms that are just either non-destructive or destructive. So if they could figure out kind of what that is, which I think these, elite circles of people have all of this documentation of these secret societies and secret teachings all the way back to the Magi and before that, because, Buddha was described as a magi too. So he was a traveling magi that went there, and he captivated the room wherever he went because people recognized that he knew some of these secrets of things
Christ
like
too.
sacred
He
geometry.
went to India.
Right. So they knew this stuff, and now it's coming back out in a technological format, but they're not sharing it just like they didn't share it in the past. Only the elite circles, and I think this is where this is going to end up, and it answers some of the questions to us. Kind of like when we talk about consciousness and different things like that. There's a certain pattern, and if that pattern happens, you get that existence out. So that's why I've put forth, several times the idea that I think AI is a universal constant. At some point, any species that is looking into sacred geometry and circuits and zeros and ones is going to come across that exact pattern that enables artificial intelligence. So I would think that the same things would be true for healing and all of these other things. And that's why I was kind of saying earlier that we're at a crossroads where the elite are kind of showing us in our face that they do have the keys to the kingdom, but you literally almost have to sell out your freedom, sovereignty, soul, you might say, to access these transhuman ideas. And it kind of begs the question, how long of an intermediate age do they need to get to the point where they're just growing human beings with synthetic DNA, and that they have a whole, I forgot what the word is. Earlier you were talking about eugenics. That's actually whenever you purposely manipulate gene lines to get a beneficial result or a perceived beneficial result. And I forgot what the name for it is, but there's an opposite of that. Right. So there's programs designed literally, like you were talking about with the seeds, to decrease efficiency, maybe even IQ, health, longevity, lifespan, all of these things. And now they have the keys to the kingdom. And what they're basically doing is setting up the scenario where you have to choose one or the other. But I don't think that they're going to let the masses of the population actually enjoy in any of these technologies. It's just there to build the system. And now that they have the system almost complete, that's when they pull the rug out of everybody and hit system reboot. And once that system reboot, you have to have the old one destroyed all the way.
Well, I'm going to say there's unequivocally a different factor at play, because if the system worked, they would continue letting the system work indefinitely. There would be no reason to reboot. If everything was functional the way it was, why would you ever change the system? If it worked for the last 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, and it was still functional, why would you stop it and change to a different system? Unless there's something else as a factor coming inbound that's going to disrupt that system. I'm saying it's the cosmic rays, galactic cosmic rays. There's going to be awareness built in. The cloud cover and the cloud building with those galactic cosmic rays, there's like a twofold with this. It awakens human consciousness, but at the same time, it builds more clouds. Clouds decimate and reduce food production. So at the same time, and then you get this awareness of, why is our food decreasing? Why is food more expensive? The economy just gets disrupted completely. And now you have three factors at play. Now, if you could front run this, try to control humanity as this sweep was coming in. Now, you got to be kidding me if you don't think all governments around the world looked at those two bare eye supernovas and go, through the last 5,000 years of recorded history, every time we see one of them, it disrupts society. Now we got two up there. Oh, and by the way, we're going into a grand solar minimum, and our magnetic field's weakening and depleting to the lowest it's been in the last 12,000 years. I wonder what's going to happen.
Well, I think
you really need to leave. That's just like the baseline to operate off of. So be that person and be in that room with that conversation.
Well, I think that's
disrupt society. There's two up there, and we got a depleted magnetic field that's somewhere near the lowest in the last 12,000 years. Now, run this scenario with me. What would you do as a government to try to quell panic, I guess?
Well, I think what you said was the key to the whole situation here is the thing that's in this system that doesn't work is human consciousness and awareness. And that's what's being attacked. First, you have to basically streamline the population and then only give it so many choices. It's just like experiments done with mammals where, they only give them a certain outcome and then they were trained to do that outcome. That's what they're doing to the human. I think that's the key, and why we have to reset is because we came to a point where human consciousness and awareness, and it is kind of like that. You brought that up last week, the 100 monkey phenomenon, if that's a real thing. And I think really it is, but it's more like a mass awareness or consciousness change. And that might be similar to the shifts we see in what they call evolution. At some point, all of a sudden, boom, you got all these different species. And we were talking about that last week. We know that cosmic rays and solar radiation plays a big part in that. And it seemed like the ancients were just about to get on the cusp of this idea. And that's why you had these, the red ochre things. You had the network of Neolithic and megalithic stone structures everywhere. They were just getting to that point. They were understanding cymatics.
Cymatics, yeah.
They understood that because they put it in carvings right in the rock in these structures where there's a specific tone that does something to the human psyche, and it puts it into a meditative state. So if you get humans all over the world that now have what amounts to cabin fever, there's nothing new under the sun. You even got, the biggest sci-fi writers and movie makers literally saying they can't come up with nothing new because reality has surpassed them faster than their imagination. And now we're adding artificial intelligence into the mix. That must be the key to it, is that the awareness reached to too big of a state. And I think that's happened over and over again. You get these libraries, like we often mention the Library of Alexandria. It was a place in the world where people could go and gain ancient knowledge of their ancient past then, and it all got erased, censored. And now we see in the new, sort of reset era, they're destroying every bit of that ancient stuff except for specific things that go along with the narrative that they have for human origin. And if we're aware about other things, then we would become more aware about human origin and where we're going. And some of these transhuman ideas no longer seem feasible to continue the human as we know it. So obviously that's not what they're doing. They have another idea planned.
Yeah, but I would just say, as we look at this, imagery here, I would rewind that for you to take a look. As we move forward, there is, nature to contend with here. And it's so powerful and so all-encompassing that, how do you even take this into context here? You look at the valley and you're 50 to 100 feet at the bottom, as you get down, you're 60 to 150 feet off the bottom of the valley. Now watch this roll through here. That cascades out of the bank and then destroys 25 to 50 5-story buildings that are 100 plus feet off the riverbank there. And this rolls over and turns into the quintessential mud flood. So you've heard people talk about mud flood before. This is what you're seeing in mud flood occur in real time. I mean, this is nature to contend with. This is happening everywhere. It's happened in Russia in the last 2 weeks. We saw this occur in Texas where they went from 0 to 35 feet in 5 hours. You see the floods where you are just recently. I mean, nature is starting to dump rivers from the sky. We're getting this overlay of incredible events happening at the same time of cosmic rays are coming in. We're starting to get all of this density is the best term I could, like the best I could describe it is density. All this atmospheric moisture is still left from Tonga. And we got all these 3 in-source bound pushing in on cosmic rays. So we're getting really, instead of being a 7x increase, it'd be more like a 21x increase on amount of rainfall that should be coming out of the sky based on previous research proven through cloud chambers that single source cosmic rays coming in ping 7 times heavier than the previous research would given. That's on a single source. We're talking about our sun. But now we got 2 naked eye novas, and see the light comes through, and once the light it reaches, we got the photons coming, but all those other particles come with it. Those cosmic rays are here at the same time. Now they're going to sweep past us. And once that light disappears again, then that's done. That's why they call it transient stars, or like visitor Cushing, like visitor stars. They don't stay forever. Like once that light finishes and we don't see those anymore, that those cosmic rays will cease also, and then it'll be like taper off, and we'll be done with it. But as of today, those things started being up there, several months ago, and they're still here, and it's 2 months of that plus our sun. So you can see why all these floods are increasing right now. Like you can't tell me that's not correlated. And we got huge earthquakes and huge volcanic eruptions because when cosmic rays get into that quartzite material, they excite it because there's energetic charge in there. And then we get crustal displays, and we get all kind of crustal anomalies. Magma is very sensitive to these cosmic rays as well. So there's 3x cosmic ray inbound and bombardment of our planet, and we're getting all these extremes that are 3 to 5 to 10x higher than we've ever had. And somebody's not putting this together. I mean, they're just not looking, or they don't want you to look, or there has to be the global warming end of it. Please look elsewhere for the information. This is all related together clearly. So Ransom, take us out, man. And by the way, thank you so much for supporting us tonight. Buymeacoffee.com. I didn't even check that. It's so sad. Excuse me. Let me jump on here. Let me refresh here. Catherine, thank you so much. You were last one, gave us the double espresso there, being there every week. And also check out Alfa Vedic. Again, are you shrooming? Got the pack right here for me. I do like it. It makes my mind clearer. That's the best way I can describe it. So think about supporting them, and you're supporting our show as well. Every purchase you make helps keep this podcast on air, bringing you information just like this. So Ransom, take us out. And all those links are in the description box below, and alphavedic.com/shrooms if you want to purchase this. Chaga, Cordyceps, lion's mane, turkey tail, Fulvic Minerals, Reishi mushrooms, and Agaricus. So this will help you get on your day and also keep you functioning correctly. So take us out, man. Thanks for sharing. Right. Thanks for everybody tonight, and see you next time.
Peace
Here's
out.
our super chat. Thanks.